Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're going into our last match for the European section of the broadcast for WCS Challenger Season 1. My name is Fear Dragon. I am joined here by Zombie Grub. And we got another Protoss versus Terran on our hands here.
Yes, we do.
What's that smirk about?
Nothing.
Okay. Glad we established that. So this next match is going to determine who our last player for the European section of Challenger is going to be in the playoffs. It's either going to be Drogo or Clem. We just saw Drogo face off versus Hero Marine. He ended up losing that series kind of one-sidedly to Hero Marine, but Clem is a different type of player than Hero Marine. How are you feeling about this match?
Yeah, he's a different type of player, and this is going to be the harshest way to say it, but he's also he's worse than Hero Marine. Can't even say slightly, right? Like, Clem has not been making it to the round of 4s in WCS, and Hero Marine has, actually, or round of 8 in every single one, right? Last year. So it's going to be a big difference. I think Drogo actually takes this one, but if Clem has, I want to say, maybe some lucky drops, like it does more damage than anticipated, maybe Drogo's a little off, he's a little tilted from that last series, something like that, then maybe Clem does have that chance, but he is, as usual, the one that's proven himself against all the, players that have been around for quite some time.
All right. Well, we're going to find out if that will be the case as we start down here on top of that red Terran player, the youngster at the young age of 17 from Infinity Gaming. He is Clem. He has the face of a 28-year-old, if you ever see him in person.
No, that's Nathanius.
It's been a while since I've heard that.
I know, right? Yeah. In the top left, as the blue Protoss, it is Drogo. I always get told, like, people say they're surprised when I say I'm going to be 28 just next week, guys. Hey, happy birthday to me. Anyways, and they're like, I thought you were younger.
What are you doing on your birthday? That's PG.
I mean, my birthday's on Cinco de Mayo, guys, and I'm going to be in California.
So you're going to go out for Mexican food.
Together.
Because they have great Mexican food down here.
Yeah, actually, that is the plan.
Second only to the greatest pizza in the United States.
Well, that's
thanks
true.
to Nathanius.
That is true.
As Nathanius is so adamantly pointed out.
Yes. West Coast has the best pizza.
Yeah. You know why they call it the calzone, right?
Because it's from California.
Yeah.
But the calzone's not a pizza.
Well,
you know what? I will fight you on that one.
No,
I'm alongside this. I'm alongside this.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you on that, actually.
Okay. The more like, when you watch Parks and Rec at all? Okay, yeah. So the calzone thing, right? As we watch fairly normal openers.
We said to the broadcast a couple of 10,000 people, in case you haven't seen Parks and Rec, too bad.
Yeah,
says Zombie Grub.
No, but like when he's talking about how much he loves calzones and everyone else is like, calzones are stupid. I was like, man, that's kind of harsh. But then I'm like, when have I ever gone to a pizza joint or like an Italian restaurant or anywhere and been like, calzone really sounds like the best option right now. So I'm kind of more on board with the guys who are like, that's a dumb option. Calzones are stupid. They kind of are. They're just a pizza folded in half. That's not as good.
Yeah. Just get your Subway sandwich with just cheese. Same thing.
How is that the same thing?
I don't know. Get some tomatoes and cheese. The sauce is tomatoes, and then the cheese is like the cheese for a pizza. And you fold it in half, and basically that's a calzone.
I'm following it.
Okay.
But how would you... What is cheese on a...
Sentry coming out once again. It seems like Drogo's going to go for the similar opening as he did versus Hero Marine. We do have the Tech Lab being added on inside the main base for Clem at the same time on that factory, but right next to the starport. So is he going to just go straight up to that Raven, as we've seen a lot of Terran players like to do? But every so often you'll see like a Terran player say, hey, yeah, you know what? Banshees. Let's do some Banshee harassment or something.
Usually off the back is something more aggressive, so either like at least a proxy barracks, even if it's a factory expand or something behind that. So yeah, I would say Raven. He was able, the nice thing for Clem, right, is that he is facing someone who might be a little off versus Terran because they just got 2-0'd and the last game was in quite quick fashion. And he also gets to study how Drogo was playing up against Hero Marine, who wasn't really showing anything too fancy. Obviously, he just kind of had some really well-executed attacks. It's going to be a Viking first. By the way, Clem did not open up with a Reaper, as we were talking about super important pizza stuff. He did open up with a Marine, which did the probe actually see? Because it usually leaves before the Reaper would pop. So it's kind of that awkward timing. But Lucid Phoenix, if this was going to be like this really weirdly timed push, would see it. As it darts in the main and then a natural. Doesn't see the tank. Ooh, ooh, fancy Clem.
Saw the tech lab on the factory, but that still could be a cyclone or something. Sees the starport, doesn't have the tech lab, so knows that it's not going to be at least a fast Raven. And okay, SCV is being pulled off the line. Observers make its way across the map, and it is on a direct path to intercept this attack. So he's going to have some notice, but it's definitely going to be a solid 5-6 seconds less than he would have otherwise. The Viking seems like it may have noticed that observer for a second, decides not to bother scanning, kills a stalker. These sentries also, they're going to have enough energy to maybe force field half the ramp. I don't know if he's going to have enough to force field both.
This is pretty brutal. Already losing the stalkers. The Viking will land once it realizes it doesn't have anything to do in the air. He's just been really good about microing it. And it's going to have that anti-mechanical damage.
There's no shield batteries or anything over here. 2 gateways of production out of the 3. That's 2/3 of his production.
This is the type of attack I was thinking, though, and I was like, Clem could do a couple of those early attacks, cheeky attacks, and actually get maybe even a straight-up win off of this because Drogo's expecting something else, like Hellions, for instance. It's not. Oh!
Immortal taking a lot of
attack.
damage. Siege Tank's focus fire down. The gateway's going to get taken out, and so is Drogo. Clem takes the first game.
Not expecting that specific attack. It was really cool of Clem to hide that tank because you said it. It could have been like a cyclone, right? That was defensively setting up because he didn't know if it was a Stargate.
Warp Prism or Oracle or something, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Could have been setting up defensively. Instead, it was going to be that tank followed fairly quickly by the second one. And then Lucid Phoenix just couldn't stick around long enough in an ideal position because Clem was actually doing a pretty good job of like trying to chase it and trace it and get the Marines on it. So it was really nicely done. And then I think Drogo was just straight up expecting something like Hellions, which maybe Clem does in a lot of others PvTs, because those front wall off gateways already put him in such a bad position to hold that.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if he actually had a little bit more time to work with as all the bunkers and everything getting set up. It's still not an easy hold by any means whatsoever, but if you at least have those 2 other gateways warping in a couple extra units during the midst of that attack, then yeah, you know what? Maybe you can get out some adepts or something shade on top of the tank, something out there to defend, but there's just no chance if you lose 2/3 of your production. You just can't.
It's pretty brutal. It also chokes you in, right? So like actually kind of like in a weird way, you might see people wait for their production to die so they can get a concave. But he was still choked in as it was the far left that went down. So it was Immortal, took heavy fire along with everything else in that Protoss army.
But in front of like the sentries and stuff. So the sentries blocked the pathway for the Immortal micro back. Yeah.
Super awkward. You know, I'll give Drogo some credit. You don't usually see that fast an attack too much.
No.
Like we do talk a lot more about tank pushes onto a third that is building, or if you don't see a third's building, then you just decide don't do it. But that was cool denial on scouting, probably a mix-up of his build, and just really properly executed.
Yeah. It's also one of those unfortunate situations where I think Drogo was... Again, like, this isn't really so much a fault of Drogo, because Clem did such a great job of just doing the mind game and hiding that tank and everything, baiting Drogo out in a kind of awkward position. But Drogo then tried to move out. He lost some of the stalkers just trying to slow down the push. Because you kind of have to do that, right? Otherwise, the tanks and the bunkers just get up at the bottom of that ramp even faster, and you're even more trouble, and you get choked out even quicker. So he kind of had to, but losing the units really does suck. We're going to see this is not exactly the kind of build that, unless you are an absolute master with 5 million IQ, this is not the build you do 2 games in a row, right?
I don't think so, because it's so possible for Drogo to open up any other way, and Clem was playing a little, like, you know, greedy in a way, right? He didn't go for Reaper, he didn't go for scouting. That's 50-50 that you don't put into, well, 50 gas, I guess, right? You don't put into the Reaper, instead to, like, that tank, and it could be a Stargate opener next time, and then he moves out as an Oracle swoops in, and he goes, dope! Like, that was bad. Or something along those lines. But actually, even if it was a Stargate opener, that can be kind of pesky.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The Viking shoos it away and then does go with the push anyways. Like,
I really love that as just like the opening for game number 1, though. Because you consider, again, you were talking about this before, Drogo just came in off the back of losing a Protoss versus Terran versus Hero Marine, which I have to say also was like Hero Marine playing really, really well and kind of bopping Drogo a bit. And then you go into the next series, you're Drogo, you're saying, okay, I got one more chance at this, let's do this, you're getting yourself pumped up and everything. And then you lose to a push like that, you're like, are you kidding me? I only have 1 game left now. That's brutal. It takes a mental toll.
Absolutely. Drogo might be looking to get things back into his control. He did not have a lot to do in that early last game, just the probe harassment, which doesn't even last that long if you figure they are going for a Marine first, because it pops out faster than a Reaper. So maybe a 4 gateway, a couple Chronos, maybe you throw Clem off his game. And at least, even if it doesn't do a whole lot, at least it gives you some semblance of control.
Yeah, I mean, at a minimum, I feel like a lot of the time it at least forces the Reaper back home or something to try and deal with the probe, or the Adept comes in, which can also deny some scouting information, give yourself a little bit more breathing room to get up your tech and your bases. But, of course, we are going to see that probe moving down through the bottom side of that natural and heading over to the opponent's side of the map. We'll see whether or not Clem is going to do anything strange this game. I mean, no second gas guys or anything, so seems like it's just going to be a one Rax expand as is per usual.
Oh yeah.
And we're going to wait to see if he goes for the Reaper or Reactor or something.
I was looking more at Drogo's build, so he doesn't actually go for aggressive usage of that gateway. Like Cybernetics Core first, then Nexus. No Zealot being fronted out here, but that does mean that he is just going to be able to deny scouting like a lot. I guess there was a bit of a spike there, testing the input lag.
Attack, Zealot, Creation.
I think we're good.
E is what hotkey is E?
Game resumed.
Nothing. I think he's just spammed the keyboard to test the input. Anyways, he's going to be able to super hardcore deny Reaper scouting is what I was going to get to. Because at the bottom wall off there's no other Reaper hop-up spot on Port Alexander. Because for some reason, all these cargo containers aren't something that Reapers can climb up. Doesn't make any sense.
Who uses ships in the age where you have spaceships?
You literally put the cargo into a spaceship.
Okay, but why do they say get your boats ready?
Spaceship, because it's a port.
You can have a port for spaceships.
You can also have a port for sea ships.
But why would you have sea ships in this day and age?
Because you still, I don't know, they actually might not. They probably don't.
Has Tasteless been lying to us? Find out next time on WCS. Ooh, I like this. Going to be able to wall off that Reaper. Port Alexander does not have that Reaper hop-up cliff, so this is the only way. He's going to try and jump over. I think that is the gateway too thick for you to do that? You might be able to do it over the pylon, but...
It's too thick. Double C's. No. It is too thick. And the pylon is something you might be able to jump over, but it's really hard to... He's looking at me weird!
I'm doing the in control.
Mom!
But I sometimes am sad that you guys can't see the cameras of us when we're casting, because in control, whenever I say something really dumb, sometimes intentionally, in control gives me just one of the greatest looks of displeasure I have ever seen. Every time, and he just doesn't say anything.
Well, luckily, we are blessed with In Control's like actual mannerisms on the panel of as many tournaments that he casts.
This is true.
So you could probably
imagine.
GIF it and then like send it in a Twitch chat at the exact same time. You know, you're trying to do that emote. Yeah.
Here you go.
Yep.
We did have a first Phoenix and second Phoenix on the way here from Drogo Stargate. And guess what? There are going to be a decent number of Widow Mines loading up into a medevac and going for a drop. This is definitely the kind of style that Clem likes to play. Getting in your opponent's face, trying to mess with them. Phoenix can be great at dealing with this if they either catch the medevac before the Widow Mines unload or they catch the Widow Mines before they burrow. But after that, it can get a little bit dicey.
Yeah, a little bit of a mess up on his build order, as we saw with the awkward cancel. But yes, he is going to have some very potentially explosive damage done. But it is going to be coming from just one direction. So it's like, it's always that, like, theoretically it should be a lot easier. But, you know, sometimes those Phoenix are only off to the right side, expecting the main to be bombarded, and it's actually natural. They're actually staying in the middle, which I kind of like. And since there are going to be 4 of them, they could pick up all the Widow Mines.
Oh, spots out the Phoenix now with the Reaper, and the Phoenix are actually, because they have been spotted, say, okay, well, it's time to move out. I was going to wait for probably 4 or 5 Phoenix, but I'll wait. I won't wait for the 5th Phoenix, and now the Widow Mines come in, so the Phoenix is going to be out of position. There's a quick reaction here, but the probes! Oh, okay. Good pull out there. And Drogo is going to be able to keep most of his workers alive. Take some damage on one of the rallying in Phoenix, but the medevac is going to get chased down. Widow Mine should get picked off here.
Yeah, so that could have been a lot worse, Phoenix not being around. Could have been, I guess, absolutely no damage if Phoenix weren't around. It does draw the Phoenix back home, so Clem did have that surprise. Like, he probably didn't expect to see so many Phoenix. He didn't have anything protecting him back at home, but now he will.
He's got 2 of the Widow Mines out. 1 Widow Mine is on the retreat back home. Another Widow Mine is burrowed at the 3rd base, and it's going to hit
I don't know about that burrow.
What? Oh, no, it's not burrow. Oh, it's not burrow. I was like, wait a second.
He probably forgot about it as he was microing this one, thinking that the Phoenix would have just chased it because it was the one that was underneath their sights. So that was kind of weird. It was alive. Doesn't do anything. We are going into a robotics bay. Gosh, the one thing like, Perlas can be frustrating, you know, especially as a terrible Terran player like me. But I think the most frustrating thing to deal with is actually Phoenix Colossus.
Shuts down your aggressive attempts, and then also has a big, strong army that makes it difficult to push in immediately.
Yeah, well, if you try and like go for if you try to go for Vikings, as we watch Phoenix, then like you're like, well, do I try to target the Colossus or the Phoenix or what's going on here? But actually, kind of the trend is that not a lot of Terrans are going for Vikings kind of at all sometimes, and then other times like really late. There are depending more on the concaves and the tanks, focus fire, and all that good stuff. So we'll see how Clem deals with this once he figures it out. So he's seen that it is Phoenix right from the start, Gate 5 Phoenix. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go into Colossus. It's still something that needs to be confirmed. A lot of weak Phoenix here. Got misrallied. Yeah,
one of them taking a lot of damage from that Marines in the bunker, but here is a pretty big push out from Clem. All right, just going to establish that third base, it looks like, as he has landed that already. Thermal Lance on the way, Blink, +1 weapons. Drogo is going to have a lot of power in about a minute and a half with this army composition, all those upgrades finishing up.
Yeah.
We'll see if Clem decides to... Do you try something before the Colossus count gets up really big, or do you probably just wait and deflect the Phoenix, get up your own large army?
Well, again, he doesn't really know about the Colossus, so I think you do your attack.
It's a pretty common follow-up, though, so it might be something on his mind, right?
Yeah, it's actually like kind of the standard now for this matchup. The Phoenix count never grew above 5, too, so it's not like it is Phoenix Colossus, and obviously we have Blink on the way. I kind of would prefer to see Charge, though. I feel like Charge... Oh, this is a nice catch.
He's going to unload some of the Marines and save both medevacs. And hey, since he has the attack moving into the third base, which does immediately get spotted, by the way, by the Colossus, but this does mean that the Phoenix are going to have a hard time getting reinforcements over here to help deal with the bio units. Colossus, the Marauders are still alive. They do the extra damage and take out that Colossus. Marines are also starting to pick off some of these Phoenix, and Drogo's kind of getting split between the third base and the natural.
Now that he's cleaned up the double drop, well, or has he?
No,
he keeps on warping in one unit at a time.
He's out of energy on those Phoenix.
I'd say focus fire the probes, maybe? No, he's going to go after the last 2 Zealots. But if he ever does clean this up, it's taken forever, but if he ever does, then he can focus entirely on the attack on his third, which should be something he can clean up with the help of a Phoenix lift, but he's lost 3 out of 5 of those Phoenix. These 2 are super low, and he doesn't actually know if Clem is reinforcing that position down at the third. We know he's not. Yeah. This could maybe be an opportunity, but...
He has an observer there, so I guess he might have noticed that there was no reinforcements, but here comes the massive wave of reinforcements, and the Phoenix are going to spot this out. If they try and go for a lift up on one of these Widow Mines, it will cost them their lives, but they don't. He moves in before the reinforcements get there. Widow Mines go off on a handful of these gateway units, which is a good shot, but it is about these reinforcements getting the damage done now that the tank has been cleaned up.
Yeah, that was such an awkward defense. The Phoenix opener, by the way, really didn't do anything. We didn't really talk about that, but it didn't. The awkward defense of the natural. Clem is set up on 3 base, getting to his secondary upgrade here. He just feels like he's in total control, and Drogo is still trying to recover. This is not going to be a decent trade for him. Just Stalkers against this?
Yeah, the Cyclone even adding in a bit of extra DPS, but I think that the Zealots should be enough there to tank for just 2 medevacs worth of units. These Colossus and the Stalkers are sharking around for the rest of the army, but it did all move up north, looking for opportunities to either go straight into the main base or maybe just go straight through the natural.
That's a pretty chunky army. I'm still quite worried. Now we do have Charge finally on the way. He is also finishing at least his armor upgrade there. He was falling behind on upgrades, but it might just be evened up in the next attack. Another Stalker goes down, army out of position because he figured there was going to be another drop, so he recalls to the third base, actually. I think he needed to. He really needed the might of his full army here.
Yeah, there is a drop getting ready on the north side at the same time, but Clem losing a lot of Widow Mines. He's coming in from behind from both sides with this Bioforce, but I just think he doesn't have enough over here. And the drop never ended up going into the main base during that attack, so he loses a lot of units and doesn't get a lot of payback.
Yeah, there were some units off to the right side that made that surround actually still really only the attack from the back. He was attacking the 4th base, and he was attacking whatever was off to the right side. So as cool as that looked, it didn't really happen. And now he's so panicked about taking damage from these Colossus, which, you know, before there was a large number of Stalkers, maybe he could take down just with his ground army, but now he needs to get to those Vikings as they are pressuring his third. He's got the lift. Here comes the rest of the army. Still a lot of Marauders.
SCV is being pulled versus Colossus. Never a good spot. Now he has to deal with this choke point. The Stalkers getting up to the high ground, and you can see that Clem does not want to move up that ramp. He reestablishes his third base. Might need to repair it up at some point, but just lost a few workers over there. He's going to load up a bunch of his units into the drop. Scans to make sure there's no observers because he knows that that army is still very close by and could very easily attack him if he saw that this was happening.
That's super dangerous. That's so... Whoa, that's risky, but it's going to work out. Drogo did move back with his non-blink Stalkers.
He's moving back out across the map with his Colossus and Zealots.
Yeah, and well, Stalkers aren't in position anyways. They're here to try and harass or like poke at an oncoming attack. They're not in position to stop or help out with basically a Doom drop. 4 medevacs here. Scan to see nothing defending. Couple Zealots warped in. They do have their 2-1 upgrades. But they're pounced upon. Where's the rest of their army? Colossus comes to help out too, but that's not going to be enough. Actually, it has to retreat.
Robo's going to get Focus Fire down over here, and then he's going to deal with these Zealots. Is going to actually pick up and retreat out of there, expecting that the rest of the army is coming, because he is moving into the 4th base, which is more or less undefended. A few Stalkers blink forward. The Colossus also hubbing out, but that 4th base is going to be a goner. The Vikings probably going to take a couple of losses over here as they try to retreat on out. 1 or 2 of them go down. And I do want to note that 3-3 is on the way here for Drogo. That's going to give him a pretty substantial upgrade lead if he can survive to that point.
That's a good point. Clem had an upgrade lead for, here and there, but he did fall behind when it came to the 3-3, and Drogo was starting to... Actually, yeah, that's 3-2, not 3-3. But the point is, he is going to have at least 1 upgrade ahead of his opponent, despite being a little behind. But Clem's not done putting on the pressure, constantly finding opportunities. Maybe one of them will open up a big opportunity, and he gets a couple Colossus. But so far, Drogo is handling it, even if it's oftentimes very scary, very last second. And Clem is going to be going into now... well, his own upgrades, but also into Liberators, as he's on 4 bases. We're getting to the later stages of this PvT.
Yeah. Clem doing a great job with his multi-prong harassment, pulling Drogo apart from so many different sides. You can see just on the minimap how spread out a Protoss player gets when it goes into the later stage of this game, especially with the 4th base that Drogo decided to take. So we're going to see Clem pushing in along the bottom left-hand side, but he still has that drop on the north side. I think that there might be some pylons or something sharking around up there looking for the drops, but we're going to see Drogo very, very busy with just the attacks on the south side, even using some storms to handle this.
So this army of Clems is kind of scary. If it had an EMP in here, it probably would beat that army of Drogo, but
it's still left in the main.
The Ghosts aren't actually involved in the main army fight quite yet.
Yeah, they're still making their way forward or I think they're still just being made, actually.
I think he has a couple now in his army, but the drop
here... +3. If he can kill that forge before the army gets in position, he's focus firing it down. He might just give up the units, but I don't think he's going to get it in time.
Yeah.
Oh!
He wasn't focus firing it, and then at the last second realizes he can, as well as identify the front lines. But that's when those surprise storms, he wasn't quite paying attention there. He does have a couple of EMPs. He just was so focused on that drop. And he did get the forge, and a lot of his army did survive despite being blanketed by storms. He just needs the time to heal up here. Disrupt is going to be really annoying to deal with as well.
I want to note that these stims are getting pretty costly. Those medevacs very low on energy, and there's only 4 of them out. He's making a 5th medevac as well alongside those liberators because he knows he needs to be able to have longevity.
Really needs to help his army. And he's going to concave. And he's also pay attention. There are so many storms that they are awfully clumped up. I think he only has like 2 ghosts though. The rest of them are still back at home. Well, he only has 3 total.
Okay, big blink forward over here. Looks like Drogo is feeling confident. The Disruptor shot also zones out this army, but that leaves the Liberators a little bit more exposed. The big EMP lands on every single High Templar. Is it going to be enough, though? Does Clem still have enough to take on the ground force? He is losing his whole army here.
I think, I mean, one of the big problems seems to be that his Vikings aren't a separate hotkey. They maybe have an opportunity to have killed both of those Colossus, but we're being kited back with the army. Maybe it was just the case that he didn't have enough of a bio army on the ground. He's at a very high worker count, right? Actually, they both are. So, yeah, they're always taking that consideration when it looks like they're going to have enough supply and they don't quite. But Drogo, not quite confident to push in yet, fearing perhaps the still serious production capability to Clem going on to what is hoping to be 5 bases.
Yeah.
But that might just be denied here.
But that pylon is there for the entire fight, so he did deny the 5th base from landing for a little bit, and also has a little bit of vision of what's actually there, or I should say the lack of units there. So he moves into a great spot. The Tempests are now out that are going to be able to whittle away not just the Vikings, but actually those Liberators going to get chipped away at.
Yeah.
And he's finding a bunch of the SCVs that are trying to long distance mine. Storms! Not going to be used there. He's actually doing an okay job splitting up a couple of those High Templars now, and the Zealot run by is going to be absolute hell for Clem to deal with in this spot.
That should be the kicker, as Drogo is also like approaching just too good of a composition for Clem to handle. Clem did not get that Viking count very high. I'm actually wondering if transferring over into Liberators was the best idea, as he was trying to keep up with the momentum and then kind of losing out on that when having to siege your units and whatnot. They are holding the line at that 4th temporarily. They help clean up the Zealots, but 20 SCVs go down. Drogo happily on 5 bases.
Ooh, finds a Tempest.
Okay,
That's not
right.
bad. Gets a bunch of Liberator siege ups as he sees the army. He's just going to go for it into a base trade situation here. Command center lifts up. He has another awkward command center that's floating into the army, but a lot of this army
Oh, no.
Drogo gets recalled. Right on top of the Bioforce over here, but the Liberators are not sieged up in time.
No, he didn't. He couldn't see that that was the Nexus being recalled to. Otherwise, I mean, maybe he wouldn't have gone that far. GG, Drogo. A little shaky in the start there, but that's PvT, I suppose. You're supposed to hold on against the torment of the Terran player, especially a guy like Clem, and then you eventually get to this really great army, and that's what happens. So he takes it to the final game of Europe Group D.
Yeah, great job from Drogo, especially with that army control moving into the later stages of the game. The multi-pronged harassment really catching him a bit off guard in the earlier stages, but he was able to bounce back in the later stages and did a great job with it. But now we move into game number 3. Clem has taken a very fast game number 1 with that early aggressive push versus Drogo.
Yep.
And then game number 2, Clem still taking, I would say, like the kind of lead in the earlier stages of the game. But it was the later stages, like you said, that kind of caused some problems there.
Yeah, I still feel like, I mean, it's difficult, right? Because the momentum does feel so strongly for a Terran player who seems to be spreading that Protoss apart and whatever, but you really have to take a second and be like, well, hold on here. The Protoss isn't losing the important units. He is getting those upgrades. But it did still, to me, feel like Clem was in an okay position to at least take a bit more of an advantage in that mid-game. And I'm thinking specifically when he had that army left at the 3rd base with no medevacs, but he hadn't yet reinforced it. If that's reinforced with a concave, I think it's different. Instead, it was kind of that awkward, like he had to fall back into his reinforcements and barely hold.
Yeah, the rally was up toward the low ground of the main base, as if he was going to just do a massive drop into the main, but he didn't actually have enough medevacs to even do that unless he wanted like elevator back and forth. So maybe that was just like the missed rally and it was supposed to be straight across the map. Yeah. Or actually, I might be misremembering the specific moment you're talking about. But anyways, yeah, either way, I really want to see how Clem decides to open up this next game, because it seems like early game, if you can capitalize on that, the momentum and everything you were talking about, there is an opportunity for him to get ahead.
Yeah.
But if you really don't see the momentum for even a split second, Drogo is going to be able to reclaim all the other random advantages that he's still been accumulating and take it into the late game.
Yeah. I think another thing to point out for Clem is that it feels like, besides that reinforcement thing, it also seemed like his Viking production wasn't as good as I expected. He was on 3-base saturation without much disruption, and he did have double starport with reactors. I made sure to check. Whenever I saw the production tab, he was only able to either afford or was only producing like 2 at a time, or maybe 3. But it wasn't consistent, and I feel like that also was an opportunity that he could have had. Because if you have like 12 Vikings in some of those scenarios where he was running away, it's actually, you know, there were moments where the terrain was favorable for him taking out some Colossus.
That's one of those interesting things that I almost wish they could go back in the replay and check his hotkeys and stuff, because that's one of those moments where I say, Clem is such an aggressive player, and sometimes when you're so aggressive, the APM just gets a little bit taxed, and sometimes maybe like you miss hotkeying of the second starport or something. So you're actually, you think that you're making 3, 4 Vikings at a time, but you're actually only making 2, and you have 2 extra queued up or something on one starport. Small things like that can really start to cost you in these high APM intense situations.
Yeah, and not to mention it is just straight up expensive to be producing so many Marauders and 4 Vikings at a time.
Yes.
So I could excuse, like, yeah, there's definitely points where he just couldn't afford it, but then in one of those last fights, I was wondering if he did have a different hotkey for the Vikings, as there was still, you know, a lot for Drogo to still be catching up on. His Storm was, all things considered, for some of our, you know, I want to say lazier PvT, is not what I mean. For some more passive PvTs, there we go, where Storm would have been still, like, would have been so much faster, even with the same build. But yeah, it seemed like a couple missed opportunities for Clem. He probably is going to feel more confident in those early and mid-game situations. He would love to be able to just put a couple of tanks on Drogo's side of the map and be like, I got you, but Drogo's going to be on guard against that.
Okay, well, we move on to King's Cove. How do you feel about like the different tank pushes and stuff on this map in particular? Because I know, for example, Cyber Forest and stuff, we saw that tank push and the bunker setup. I feel like I see that specific, not exactly that exact timing for the tank push, but I see that position of a bunch of tanks, a bunch of bunkers on the low ground because of that narrow ramp and everything is very common. Do you think that's something that you see a lot on King's Cove?
I don't think so, not nearly as much. Like, you don't. Your third is still kind of attached to your natural on the high ground, unlike some other maps like Cyber Forest, where there's the well in between. That can always be a problem if you don't know where the Terran's moving to. It's also like bigger, right? It's a bigger map. The worst thing about Cyber Forest of getting across the map is that choke in the middle. You're like, well, I hope they're not here.
Yeah, the 2 rocks.
Yeah, exactly. But then, you know, if you actually are allowed through that, then it's kind of a straight shot between your natural and theirs. Whereas this is a little more windy. It's generally a bigger map. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen. Sometimes there were a couple of pushes, I think, earlier on where they were trying to abuse the natural with the rocks and get some tanks there, right? And that can still definitely happen, but this is usually where we see the Protoss capable of getting a 3 base and then abusing their high ground / choke against whatever the Terran has to throw at them.
Okay, so the probe does a bit of harassment to that SCV, which, you know, if a Terran player hasn't scouted or anything, can sometimes strike a little bit of paranoia of, okay, if they proxy to put the gateway on the low ground or something, there could be a chronoboosted adept out. Do I need to stay a little bit more defensive with the Reaper or something? But actually, it's not going to be that. Well, I guess the Reaper is going to make its way across the map, but he is going to soon see that there was no proxy gateway. Doesn't have to worry about pulling that Reaper back.
Yeah, nothing to be quite scared of. But we do have to talk about Drogo potentially being scared. I mean, every Protoss has to be scared about any opener from Terran because we do have those tank pushes that can be really quite annoying.
That's an interesting recall.
I mean, it has kind of been determined that recall is better if you save the probe, right?
So I know that has been said. It compared to if you recall the probe back from your opponent's side of the map because there's lost mining time there. If he was already at home, is it worth it?
If he saves the probe, I guess so. He thinks it is.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So anyways, back to, like, so Clem, like, yeah, 1-1-1, scary stuff. Anything scary. Wood of Mines, get one good shot, you're dead. Tank push, you don't see it, you're dead, whatever. He's actually going to go for a 2-1-1. So he's going to have faster drops out. Maybe he saw how effective it was. They didn't get those surprising, like, oh, you actually lost 15 probes, but there was those opportunities where, like, okay, you may have been able to stick around a little bit longer. You may have been able to jump on that Colossus. And the sooner he gets that started, that's obviously a strong suit. That's what we usually talk about with these upstart Terrans, that their micros is good and their decision-making might be reckless, but it also might have great reward.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's always a little bit of a gamble when you see those reckless Terran players going into situations extremely aggressively. But you do see a lot of wins off of it. I think Kelzer is one of the players that I always think of as being one of those guys who came up thanks to that exact sort of decision-making. Almost knocks the Stalker out of position for the Reaper to jump in, but doesn't really feel like it's worth diving in any further. Sees the Sentry there and the Stalker. And we do have Blink and Robo coming up here behind this for Drogo. How do you feel about... I mean, he's going to have Blink in time for the, like, 2-1-1 pressure, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. It still comes down to, like, this can be really scary. Stalkers blink under, and then suddenly you don't just lose Marines, you lose all momentum. It's like you're supposed to keep that alive and at least scare them. But if they're caught out of position, it still can be okay. It does make things quite scary, I would say, as opposed to maybe a Colossus build where maybe the Colossus can do with the deal with the Marines, but at least you're able to escape with them. But this case, you could just straight up lose either one or both medevacs.
Yeah. All right, well, the Reaper sees that third base, is going to run straight into the Stalker force, and is going to know, okay, the Stalkers are moving out. What does Clem do? He's still going to load up those Marines into the medevac and go across the map. The Stalkers may be very far out of position for this, but I'm not going to lie, they're not going to encounter a whole lot of units on Clem's side of the map.
They're not going to quite know that. They might assume that there's some units in the high ground, you know, cautious of a blink in, because this can be a good blink map. or they just assume they're not there and they blink in. Okay, that's actually the best thing for Drogo.
The risk is rewarded right here. And you're going to see that the double medevacs on this side of the map are going to encounter 3 Stalkers and a Sentry, as well as a Shield Battery finishing up 3 Gateways, going to be able to warp in some more units. And is Clem actually going to be able to get as much damage as he's taking on his side of the map done?
Did he actually see the medevacs at the observer? He had everything perfectly. Yeah, I guess he did see it, like, and he was paying attention because he also had the force field to blockade, which is just absolutely perfect. 15, 16, 18 SCVs go down, the Marines go down, and unfortunately Clem's drop not doing, I think, as much as it wanted. It is taking some Stalkers down with it before Drogo can get into the reinforcement line, so maybe this actually isn't so bad. His Stalkers in the front line also end up going down.
Well, isn't it so bad?
It's still pretty bad. It's still pretty bad.
If you're trading out versus your opponent's Stalkers, but you're also trading your own army for it, and your opponent just killed a bunch of your economy, I think the big fear is that, remember, it's going back to what we were saying, you either need a tech advantage, an army advantage, or an economic advantage to make the comeback. And he just lost his economy. He lost a lot of his army. And I don't really know that he has a big tech advantage in any way.
Not really.
Yeah.
What really sucks about that engagement, too, was that it was before combat shields, where that extra health could have maybe been the difference of really fully trading out with the Stalkers.
No, it makes a huge difference in taking that extra shot from the Stalkers. But Stalkers blink up into the main base. We see a big stim forward as he tries to deal with this. Now, he should know that there's an observer there, so after he pushes these Stalkers back, he should be able to scan, pick that off. If he has the economy to spare for it.
This is so tough. Clem, like, I feel like if this was TVZ, and I'm still like on board with the whole drops, like bringing him back, but against Protoss, who does have Blink, who's controlling the game, and then they could, in an emergency, start warping in charge lots, because that's about the finish. I just don't think drops are actually going to do as much as you would hope for. A main push also is not going to do a whole lot. I don't think you can, but you might want to, since the Stalkers are here anyways.
Yeah.
It's such an awkward thing, though, because he's still actually building production, and that's usually not when you pull SCVs, so he's just forcing this all in.
He just started a +1 armor upgrade, which is the antithesis of trying to pull the boys and go for an all-in.
He maybe should have just pulled the SCVs.
Because, I mean, if you think about it, there's not really going to be a lot of splash damage, and Charge is now finished up and everything, so it'd still be problematic, but...
Oh, no, the tank's trying to get into that really nasty position on the south side, and instead are just stuck in that medevac. At least they'll live, I guess. Not a lot of Stalkers along with this army, and the good kiting, or maybe not that, maybe, nope, jeez. Oh, the tanks will die now.
Keeps the medevacs alive.
Or will they?
Some really nice high pickups here.
This micro, not so bad. He took out a lot of the Zealots, but there's still too much Protoss.
Yeah, I am really impressed that Clem was able to make it look that close, because he should have been very, very dead, but instead he's just probably regular.
I mean, he's scanning the third at this point, like, okay, if I take down this army, do I have a shot? And what he sees is still a mostly saturated third, right? Even as he takes down the 2 Immortals, are you kidding?
Oh my god, this kid. Can someone get him a bucket of water? Because his mouse and keyboard are going to be catching on fire soon at this level of micro.
That is amazing. That made so much more out of that than I thought it ever would.
Yep. Unfortunately, there's still a third base for Drogo that Clem does not have.
Yeah.
Clem did get up the +1 weapons upgrade, and I guess that +1 armor is going to finish.
Yeah.
The
2 upgrade lead.
You know what, Zombie Grub? It's not a lot of hope right now. There's like a little fire in the middle of the room, a little candle that's been lit, and you know what? One day it might turn into a big bonfire, but it's not there yet.
And to really emphasize there was that +1 attack done for that fight, and that's probably why the Zealots were even chewed through in the first place. Otherwise, they would have actually gotten all their connections. And now it's going to be a double upgrade lead.
Oh boy,
Clem is
the tech lab.
Absolutely going to have to do a 2-base follow-up all-in, and this time I think he will pull the SCVs. And it's more of a question for me if Drogo will have any splash, which he's not going to right now.
Catches a few Stalkers over here. That's 1, 2, 3 Stalkers. 4th Stalker getting a little bit lower. Loses some Marines in the process, but keeps some medevacs and stuff alive. And these Marines are actually out for blood. Finally pulled back. The 4th siege tank can't really get started back up here because he lost the tech lab on the factory. So that is going to hurt his push quite a bit. I wonder if he just makes something else with the factory and goes for it. No.
Just build a widow mine one at a time.
It looks like he's rebuilding the tech lab.
Yeah, I think the best situation for him is that the Stalkers overcommit and die, which they kind of have been doing.
Oh man, he should know that there has to be an observer there for the high ground vision to be given. I really wish he would have invested one of the mules to just scan instead and take care of it.
Yeah. But anyways, get the stalkers right if they actually overcommit, which they kind of have. And then I guess in this case, maybe to poke and prod with drops is fine as long as you don't lose the drops, but that's like a really big if. Stalkers, and now feedbacks are available. He also isn't pushing before Storm, so that question of like, will Drogo have splash against a 2-base all-in has been answered. He absolutely will. I mean, maybe these drops pull him out of position so the tanks get into a really great spot. Maybe Drogo should not go for this 4th base, I guess, but it's feeling very risky.
Okay, well, the drops move in, and they do find that cybernetics core pretty quickly, so if he snipes that off, there's not going to be any stalker production, but here are the boys being pulled.
Oh!
Okay, well, that's
a good
4
pylon.
gateways and a robo being taken care of. Artosis, someone out there waking up.
Yeah, and he does get away because there aren't a lot of stalkers. There's 7, so like it's okay, but is he going to be able to get into a decent position with these tanks? The SCVs have been pulled, but Storm is done. There are 6 High Templar with Storm, and he is not sieged. Takes a couple of shots there.
So Zombie Grub, how many medevacs do you see with that army?
I only see 1, but he has 3. There we go.
There. Yeah, it was the 2 from the drop.
Yeah.
This is still not a lot for a lot of Storms.
No. I don't think he actually... Oh, that was a great shot from the tank. It did take out, I think, 2 High Templars, and they're keeping the High Templars at bay. That's what he has to hope for. So every time he unsieges his tanks entirely, that's when I'm like, I don't know about that. But he is bullying Drogo back.
Okay, we got the High Templars moving forward, but the Siege tank's going to be able to push him back. Shield batteries healing up the shields on those Siege tanks. Oh my god, those Storms. Soften up so many of these Marines. And look at this. The medevacs just don't have time to heal up this army.
Nah, yeah. I mean, the combination of the stim that didn't do anything, plus that Storm's pretty brutal. Now he has to stim, as Drogo is committing to this. He's trying to focus fire on top of the High Templars, but then the tanks start to go on the Zealots again. And that might just be it. I mean, the Stalkers are taken out as they come from behind.
There's still 3-4 Storms left over.
Yeah, there's so many. Oh, 1 Storm's going to kill all these. Oh, no.
Okay. GG. Drogo pulls this series back from an 0-1 deficit to a 2-1 and advances on to the playoffs for WCS Challenger.
Perfect response to that 2-1-1, being able to know there's something back at home, and getting a force field. I just can't believe that force field actually did that, because it's a drop. Like, it could have not come up through that choke, and it did delay it even a little bit. It was brutal to watch.
Yes.
That 2-1-1 supposed to be a start, not the deciding factor of a game.
And all off the back of just him not seeing that the Stalkers were moving across the map. Or actually, no, it was that he saw that there were a lot of those Stalkers and everything, but he still made the choice to go for the drop.
Yeah, well, he probably figured the Stalkers wouldn't commit. Just like I was saying, like the Stalkers, if they don't know, they might be a little shy, but they did know.
Well, really, really well done, and good decision-making there from Drogo in a very tense situation. But as we take a look, guys, we'll see that at the end of the day, we had 2 players advance on out. It is going to be good. Well, actually, it looks like this is Group A, so in case you guys missed it, Group A, we did have Cyril and a Laser advancing on out from Group A. Nurchio and Hearthstone getting knocked down. As we take a look, there was also Group B, where we had Showtime and Raynor advancing on out. Raynor advancing out in 2nd place. I know a lot of people were expecting him to maybe be able to advance out in 1st place, but Showtime looking really, really strong in Group B. In Group C, which was just yesterday for Europe, we had Euthermal and Soul, 2 Terran players, advancing out over Lambo and DNS. And of course, today, we already saw the results of this just now. Hero Marine and PtitDrogo, both going to be your last 2 players advance out to the playoffs. Clem and Amshar will have to enter into the open bracket of WCS Spring if they want a shot at making it to the playoffs there.
Yeah, which I believe everyone who participated in Challenger and everyone else and their mom and their stepsister and everyone has already signed up on the competitor list for Spring.
Yep, already saw 70 players signed up.
It's already public, so definitely for the Europeans, that they're probably actually going to go, right? Maybe if in a North American had signed up, they're like, so waffling, but...
Yeah, a little bit harder for those North Americans. But speaking of North America, we are going to have 2 more North Americans advance into the playoffs and get a shot at getting into the top 4 or something and maybe get that flight and hotel paid for, as well as also just getting a shot at maybe becoming the regional champion for North America. And that's going to be in just a few minutes' time. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you guys are as excited as I am for the North American group of Jon Snow, Vindicta, Neeb, and Idraling. Yes, that is right. Idraling, not Idra, Idraling. We'll see you guys there in WCS NA Challenger in about 10 minutes' time.